Welcome to our weekly maritime video blog. I'm Corey Ransom with International Maritime Security Associates. This week is part 2 of our discussion with Admiral Pete Brown, the commander of Coast Guard District 7. What does a typical day here at District 7 look like?
Well, just a couple minutes ago, I was talking with the chaplains. We have Navy chaplains that serve with the Coast Guard and are all at all of our sectors in the 7th District. So from St. Petersburg, Key West, Miami, Jacksonville, Charleston, South Carolina, and Puerto Rico as well. And these chaplains do a great job of serving Coast Guard members and their families with not only their spiritual needs, but also in family counseling, marital counseling, helping injured Coast Guard members who are hospitalized, things like that. So they do a really great job for us, and we essentially have one of them at each of our 6 sectors, so they're spread very thin. Later on this morning, I'll be talking with some of my interagency partners from Homeland Security Task Force Southeast. That's the DHS organization that's built to deter and combat mass migration. Should that ever happen again? It's happened in the past. We want to be ready for it if it were to happen in the future. So we've got an upcoming exercise where we exercise those plans. Later today, I'm going to be headed up to Orlando to talk to the U.S. Power Squadrons, a volunteer boating safety organization. So one of the things that I really enjoy about my job, and the way that it's changed really from decades ago, is that we used to be in what I'd call a volume business. Drugs came from South America toward the north, migrants came from Haiti or Cuba or wherever, toward South Florida. But now I see that our work is much more of a variety business. There are so many different aspects of the Coast Guard, so many different aspects of District 7 that I may not have appreciated before when I was in the production mode down in the Office of Law Enforcement.
One of the things that you touched on was, and one of the things that I think is really unique about District 7 is how this district touches a number of foreign nations, almost very unique to District 7. Not only are we here in Florida and Georgia, Carolinas, but through the islands and through a number of nations. How is that a little different from, I think, some of the other districts and operations where you really have to be a liaison to a number of kind of your counterparts in foreign governments as well?
Right, that's a great question. So many of our counterpart agencies are not U.S. agencies, they're foreign entities, and we have Coast Guard liaison officers and attachés in about a half dozen countries in the Caribbean, Central, and South America. We have bilateral agreements that allow us to cooperatively operate with other countries. The Bahamas, particularly important. The Bahamas are an island nation about the size of the state of California, but most of that is water space. There are 700 islands in the Bahamas, only 22 of which have people on them. And so it's a very ungoverned space. They're very limited in resources. The government of the Bahamas is very cooperative with us, but they're geographically challenged in being able to surveil all of their water space. So we have cooperative arrangements and an exchange of personnel that allow us to fly over the waters and islands of the Bahamas, to patrol those waters with our Coast Guard cutters in a cooperative fashion. And so those are really special relationships that we have here. The other thing that's enjoyable about District 7 is the opportunity to meet some of our other counterparts, including the Dutch, the British, and the French, who still have interests in the Caribbean and who occasionally have a presence of patrol-type vessels that we can operate with. So we have an operation going on right now with the Dutch operating out of Curacao well into the Eastern Caribbean. So that's one of the special aspects of District 7 that I particularly enjoy.
From, and last hurricane question, from the perspective of preparedness, what would be your advice to people to prepare ahead of time for the upcoming hurricane season? I know here in South Florida, we went a number of years where we didn't have any major storms and not even a brush, and then this past year extremely busy. So people seem to get, in my opinion, a little complacent when it comes to the preparedness. What would be your advice to boaters basically of all types of what to do to kind of prepare and to stay out of the way of the storms?
Okay, well, first I have to mention that last hurricane season was, another unique aspect of it was people, especially here in South Florida, paid attention to the evacuation recommendations of government officials, including the governor and other local officials. I think they'd been maybe, I don't know if scared is the right word, but maybe informed by what happened in Hurricane Harvey in Texas and Louisiana. And so they took the threat of Hurricane Irma very seriously here and evacuated to a very great extent the coastal areas that were most vulnerable to storm surge. That saved lives. In fact, we had much less search and rescue demand in Florida than we would have normally expected from a major hurricane because so many people paid attention to the evacuation orders. So be prepared to evacuate. I can tell you that personally, I have a new appreciation for a full tank of gas and a fully charged cell phone because those were rare commodities as the evacuation was taking place. For boaters, boats and docks are always going to be vulnerable to hurricane damage, and there's a limited ability to get particularly a sailboat out of the path of a hurricane. It is much less dangerous for people to just leave their boat at the dock and evacuate by land, get out of the way of the storm surge. You know, that's why we have insurance. That's why we have emergency services to deal with the cleanup afterwards. There's no stop in the destructive power of the storm surge of a hurricane. The best thing to do is get yourself and your family out of the way of that storm by following evacuation orders, and then we'll come back and clean up afterwards.
Last question for you. You've been in the job just about a year now, just coming up basically on a year. How has your first year been here at District 7?
It's been fairly wild. I tell people I've been here for about 8 months plus 16 years. So 8 months of my current assignment, but about half of my overall Coast Guard career. As I mentioned earlier, it's different in some ways from what I'd seen in the past. Sometimes people, including my staff, ask me if I've seen it all. I'll never say that I've seen it all, but I'm starting to get close, I think.
Right.
So the thing that I think that I appreciate now more than maybe when I was kind of in the staff and in the grind on a day-to-day basis is the number of great people that we get to work with, both within the Coast Guard, with interagency partners like Border Patrol, Customs and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, CIS and others. The volunteers of the Coast Guard Auxiliary and the U.S. Power Squadrons that do so much for boating safety. These are parts of our work that I didn't fully appreciate when I was more junior, and now for my current position I get to see them, cooperate with them, and kind of build those relationships for the future.
Is there anything else that you would like to add or that you would like to touch on that we didn't cover?
I think the one piece that maybe we didn't fully touch on, I talked about it in the context of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, but is the importance of the maritime transportation system to the economy of our country. A lot of people see the Coast Guard from a search and rescue or maybe a law enforcement and security standpoint, but the economic security of our nation is a vital component of national security. About $4.6 trillion worth of commerce flows on the water. Here in South Florida, the cruise ship and yacht industries are probably the most visible, but other types of commodities, containers are flowing on the water as well, and it's absolutely vital that that system work, that system of maritime highways. My first tour was on a buoy tender where we maintained the buoys, the aids to navigation, the traffic lights and the street signs of the maritime transportation system. I think that's sometimes an underappreciated part of the Coast Guard, and people who don't see that system at work every day maybe don't know that it exists. We see tractor trailers on the highway and we understand that's goods getting to market, but ships on the water, barges on our inland waterways are goods getting to market as well, and the Coast Guard has a big role in making sure that that happens safely and securely.
Well, Admiral, we really appreciate your time today. We know that just from the sounds of it, your schedule is very busy. I feel like now I need to go take a nap because I don't think I'm busy.
Thanks for joining us this week for part 2 on our two-part discussion with Admiral Pete Brown, who's the commander of Coast Guard District 7. Make sure you connect to us through our social media, detailed in the banner above and also in the comments section below. Subscribe to this channel so you get notified when we post new videos, and a new video comes out every Thursday on the video blog section. Also, make sure you hit that like button for all the videos you like. If there's anything that we can do for you from regulatory compliance, maritime risk management, or maritime security, don't hesitate to reach out to us because we're always happy to steer you in the right direction.